Loom-a-nology part 2, how to do the garter stitch. When you have finally found out how to do the knit stitch, true knit or flat knit or U-wrap, and you know how to do the purl stitch, you can do garter stitch. How to prevent that you're knitting 2 rows the same way in knit stitch or in purl stitch. Garter stitch is always 1 row in a knit stitch and 1 row in a purl stitch. Find out which way your purl stitch from the right to the left or from the left to the right is going the easiest way. In my case, it's always from the right to the left. So I note that. Also note my knit goes from the right or from the left to the right. So the purl stitch is from the right to the left. When you have to stop knitting because the phone rings and your working yarn is at this side of the loom, you always know I have to do knit stitch now. Of course, the phone always rings when you're in the middle of a row, and I'm going to show you how you can discover which way you are going. So, just by noting which direction you're doing which stitch, you can prevent that you're doing a knit row twice or a purl row twice. I'm doing the knit stitch now. I will accidentally do 2 purl stitches in between just to show you how you can fix that easily. So when you look at the inside of your loom, you will see that when you're doing a knit stitch, you always see the rib of a purl. I will show you a better example. Here you see the V shapes. That's the right side of a knit stitch, and here you see the ribbings of a purl. In loom knitting it is, when you are knitting a knit stitch, you always see this ribbing appear at the inside of your loom. And as you know, I did 2 purl stitches, and as you can see here, I've got 2 purl stitches because the V shape, it will always appear at the inside of the loom when I'm doing those purl stitches. What I'm going to do, I can frock it, of course, but when you have 99 stitches, that won't be fun doing. So you take the stitch that's below or beneath the stitch on the loom. You put that back on the loom. So the one below, you put it back. You do this. And as you know, a knit stitch is always with the working yarn above the stitch on the back, so you knit a knit stitch here, and also the second one you do a knit stitch. Again, we take a closer look. And as you can see now, there all are ribbings now. The same thing. I'm always doing my purl from the right side. I know that because I made a note. Okay, and then the phone rings. I'm coming back and I want to continue. Okay. I hadn't make a note which row I was making, so I have to take a closer look at my knit work. And in this case I will say, okay, I was doing a purl row. You can see that because when you pull at your knit work, you see the stitch beneath the one on the peg is a V shape. So I have that knowledge that when I'm doing a purl stitch, a V shape will appear. When I know for certain, I just take off one stitch and it's going that way, so I know I was knitting to the left. And when I'm knitting to the left, I'm always doing a purl stitch. Exactly the same when you're doing the knit stitch. When you want to know how I'm doing the purl or the knit stitch this way, there are 2 videos on this channel too where I explain it. So you knit a few stitches. Phone is ringing. You go back to your knit work, or you want to continue and you don't know where you were. Here is your working yarn. It's also at the right side of your peg, dus most of the time then you continue knitting to the right side, so you know I'm doing the knit stitch. So just take a closer look at your knit work. What does it tell you? You want to be certain. Take off that last stitch you made where the working yarn is, put it back, and you see it goes to the left, so you know I'm working to the right side of the loom. And when I'm working to the right side, I always do the knit stitch. And why do you have to take a closer look at this? Otherwise you are going to do another technique on the loom, and that's making short rows, and that's not what you have to do when you're making a panel with your garter stitch. Okay, Loom-a-nology part 2, how to do the garter stitch. Hope you enjoyed watching and hope to see you some other time. Bye bye.